The Jets, they hold the number 2 pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, and once again, everything comes back to the quarterback position. We do know that, with Oregon's Dante Moore and Indiana's Fernando Mendoza having gone head-to-head in the college football playoff semifinal, the spotlight is only getting brighter on what direction this Jets franchise should go. So, what should the Jets do if they're on the clock with a chance to draft their next quarterback? Can this organization be trusted to develop one? And are there other options that fans should be paying attention to? For that conversation and answers to those questions, I'm joined by WFAN producer and host, also the voice behind the new series, 40 Days and 40 Nights. It's my guy, EJ Stewart. Also should be noted, a long-suffering Jets fan. Hear me now. EJ, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Yeah, can we put long in all capital letters?
Yes,
long
we
is
can
in
do
30 plus years. Yeah, let's do that.
we
Doing great, man.
I'm glad you're good, man. We can absolutely do that. Long suffering, and I know you want to see some good change. I know you want to see the Jets get a quarterback. Also, the thing I know about you is you are a big college football fan. So I felt like you were the perfect person to talk to about this. So, EJ, after watching that college football playoff semifinal the other night where Indiana, they handled Oregon, what stood out to you the most when you compared the performances of Fernando Mendoza and Dante Moore, and how much should that one game on that stage influence the Jets' thinking at number 2?
Well, the one thing I thought was kissing the chance of trading for the number 1 pick goodbye. I think if you're a Las Vegas Raiders fan and you watch that game, I think you were like, you know what? I think we're going to just run to put that card in to select Fernando Mendoza. So any thought, and there were some conversations in draft circles about whether maybe the Raiders will consider Dante Moore, that's completely out of the window. And I don't think even a trade up is going to be possible. So if you're the Jets, I think you watch that game, you say, okay, you know what? We're going to have to live with a non-Fernando Mendoza option here in the NFL draft. Now, does this mean that because Dante Moore had the first play pick 6, which was mind-boggling, a lot of folks joking like, oh, his Jets career is getting off to a great start here, throwing a pick 6 on the first play. I don't think you should go crazy over that. Indiana has been destroying everybody. They've been the best team in college football by far. So I don't think one game or one play should make you feel like Dante Moore is no good. I do think if you watch that game, what I've been saying a bunch is I think Dante Moore is going to end up being a prospect that you could select him high, but you're going to need a veteran to probably start early on. I think the last thing you want to do is throw him into the fire, because if you do what you did in the past with your other older quarterbacks or Zach Wilsons or Sam Darnolds, they're going to look a lot like Dante Moore looked in that first game against Indiana. So that to me was the biggest thing was Dante Moore. You saw some of the throws that he was able to make in the next drive they came back and later on in the game. He's got physical tools. I just think that it's going to take time for him to develop into quarterback that people and draft experts think he could possibly be.
So that's a perfect segue of you just saying that, EJ, into where I wanted to go next, because we still have to see if Moore declares, and if he does declare for the draft and is sitting when the Jets pick second, as you believe that he will, do you believe that he's the type of talent that you're like, okay, you simply have to take him? Or is this a situation where the Jets need to be far more cautious, I'll say, than they've been in the past when it comes to selecting a quarterback this high?
It's a great question, and the answer, I think it depends. I think if you're expecting Dante Moore to come in and be your savior next year and to turn what was a 3-win team into a team that's competing for a wild card spot or competing in the division, then I don't think that you should be drafting him. I think that he's a player that's going to need to sit, much like he did at Oregon, sitting behind Dylan Gabriel for a year before he took over the reins and took them one game further than Dylan Gabriel was able to take them. He was able to get them at least to the semifinal. Dylan Gabriel got eliminated in the quarterfinal. So Oregon didn't take a step up this year with Dante Moore, but that was after he sat a year. So to me, if you're expecting him to play immediately, then no, I don't think you should draft him. If you're doing that, then I would say take a defensive player and then go after a different guy. I love Trinidad Chambliss out of Ole Miss. And you got all these picks. You got multiple firsts. You got multiple seconds. I would maybe look towards him if you're saying that we're okay with having a quarterback come in and we're not trying to throw him into the fire. I think that's going to be the important thing. Now, if you're in a situation where you say, hey, we're willing to be patient and we know that we're going to have the veteran to support this guy, then yes, I think Dante Moore will be a great choice.
All right. So the Jets, we know they got to try to get this right. And there's going to be a real conversation, EJ, about whether the Jets as an organization can be trusted to develop a young quarterback. So from your perspective, are they in a better place to do that now than they were, let's say, 5 or 10 years ago? Or is that still the biggest red flag in this entire discussion when we're talking about the Jets selecting a quarterback? Can they be trusted to develop a young quarterback? Because from a lot of people, they're going to be like, look, we haven't seen it.
Yeah, that's been all this conversation that, Dante Moore or any quarterback that's in this draft, they should beg, beg, beg to not go to the New York Jets. And I challenge people to be like, find me a top pick that went to a great situation. I don't think Cam Ward walked into the 90s Cowboys when he went into the Titans. I don't think that Joe Burrow walked into the 80s 49ers when he arrived in Cincinnati. I mean, if you're drafted high, you're going to a bad team. So I don't quite really understand this idea that quarterbacks should avoid bad organizations. There is no avoiding a bad organization if you're going to be drafted near the top of the NFL draft. I think with the Jets also, this is a lot different than when they drafted Sam Darnold and when they drafted Zach Wilson. Those guys came to teams where the cupboard was completely, utterly bare, where they came in, there were no receivers, there was no offensive line, there was no running game. Yes, the Jets were a terrible football team this year, but they actually have some of the foundational pieces you need to help support a young quarterback. You have a number one wide receiver in Garrett Wilson. You have an offensive line that started all 17 games and has a lot of young talent, guys that definitely look like they'll be long-term NFL starters. And we'll see what happens ends up happening with Brees Hall. I know Darren Muji says that he wants to bring him back. I think the Jets should bring him back, assuming that it's on a reasonable deal. You could have a decent running back, a number one wide receiver, and a young offensive line that's growing. What quarterback wouldn't want to play with that? I don't quite understand this logic. I think the Jets are actually in a great spot to develop a young quarterback. Now, the coaching is the biggest question mark. And if we want to talk about Aaron Glenn and Tanner Engstrand, that's a whole nother conversation. I like Tanner Engstrand, but I think a lot of the questions I would have would be not about the roster or the team around the young quarterback. Is this coaching staff going to be up to the task?
You make some really good points there, EJ, I got to say, because a lot of the talk around that is about, the Jets being the Jets, right? The whole is not easy being green. They have not done this. But to your point, there are pieces there where a young quarterback, if it's the right fit, could succeed. And sometimes you get in situations, Cam Ward, you just mentioned, goes to the Titans. Right. Maybe he doesn't have a number one receiver. It doesn't have a good running back. Doesn't have a good offensive line. I think that's one of the biggest things you brought up there. So the Jets could do this. It's just a lot of people go back and say, well, the Jets haven't done it historically, which is true, but you make a good point. There might be some pieces in play to change the narrative around them in terms of developing a quarterback. Now, you mentioned Trinidad Chambliss, and I'm sure we'll get into him a little bit more here, but beyond Mendoza and Moore, are there any other quarterback names in this draft class that intrigue you like Chambliss as potential Jets options, either in round one or as a developmental play later on?
Yeah, I mean, I think Trinidad Chambliss is definitely going to be a guy that Jets fans are going to want to get familiar with. I mean, he was really the player outside of, that last game for Mendoza. He's been the player of the college football playoff. What he did, obviously, in their first kind of tune-up game against Tulane, and then the remarkable game he had against Georgia. And this guy, an incredible story. He's played, 5 years of college football. He was trying to get a 6 year. He just got recently denied, but what he may lack in some size, he's only 6'1". He does not lack in creativity, in arm strength, and arm talent. The guy's an electric football player, one of the most exciting players in this upcoming NFL draft. So I think if you're looking at second round pick, maybe late first round, we'll see how these things go. Typically, quarterbacks, if teams like them, they kind of run up the chart. So I think he may end up being a late first round pick. The Jets having 2 picks, I think he may be someone to look at. Ty Simpson also declared for the NFL draft. He is someone who, again, put up a lot of production at Alabama. The game against Indiana, similar to Dante Moore, not the prettiest. I would tell people I would not judge both Moore or Ty Simpson on that game. Watch their entire tape. Simpson had a really good season playing for a really good offensive coach in Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb. So those would be 2 guys I think if the Jets elect to not take a quarterback at number 2, if they decide to pass on Dante Moore and say, you know what, we're going to get one of these top defensive guys, an Arvell Reese or Ruben Bain or someone like that, I think looking at those guys, Simpson, Chambliss, late first round, second round, third round will be the guys you want to keep an eye on.
Is drafting the quarterback in 2026 a necessity for this Jets franchise, or is there a realistic argument that the Jets should address other premium positions and look for a different QB pathway altogether, whether that be in 2027? Well, you don't want to be later in 2027. I would say you have to kick it down a year. I think later in 2027 would be too much, but do you think it should be a different QB pathway altogether that comes later than 2026?
It's a tough spot. I mean, I've been someone who's been asking that question that, maybe the Jets should seriously consider not taking a quarterback high in this draft. And I think that's what they may end up deciding. Now, the question is, all right, when do you take a quarterback? Like, is taking Trinidad Chambliss in the second round still count as taking a quarterback and making that guy your franchise guy? I don't know. I think the problem with the Jets is if you don't take him now, then when? Because if you're bringing in a veteran to come in this year, And with the things I just mentioned, again, an offensive line that's much improved, a top-notch receiver in Garrett Wilson, maybe a veteran, a Malik Willis, someone like that comes in and they are actually able to win 8 or 9 games. Now, where are you getting your young rookie quarterback who's going to be a top pick, right? Like you're not going to be in a position to draft that high if you do get in a veteran who come in and win some games. Aaron Rodgers was too good, as bad as he was with the Jets. He was too good for the Jets to get high enough to draft a top quarterback last season. So that I think is the question for the Jets, and that's why I think it makes it dicey if they decide not to take a quarterback this year, which again, that would be, I think a quarterback's getting taken. It's a matter of when. If you're not talking about taking a quarterback high in the draft, saying, okay, we're going to take a guy later, what veterans coming in and how much is that going to affect your draft positioning next year? You got those extra picks, so that may give them a little more wiggle room, but that's certainly going to be something to watch. I'm going to be following very closely.
Yeah, we're all going to be watching to see what the Jets will do in the draft. Will they take a quarterback? Thing is, we know one thing. They absolutely need to find their franchise quarterback, and E.J. Stewart will be all over that. Definitely check him out. New show starts tomorrow, right? Starts on Monday. That
Monday.
is 40 Days, 40 Nights. Check it out. It's going to be a really good one. My guy, E.J. Stewart. You can also check him out on WFAN, hosting and producing there. E.J., look, I want good things for you, man. I don't want you to say that you're a long-suffering Jets fan anymore. I want to see you get a franchise quarterback. We hope that can happen. We know it probably won't be Mendoza, but it could be more or others, so we'll check that out. Appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on and talking some Jets football.
You got it. It's got to turn around at some point, right, Dex? It's got to turn around at some point.
Yeah, feels like it should. Feels like it should.